Hi guys, Yacca here. So we're up to part 7 for the card review for Scholomance Academy. And this time we'll go through Druid and Hunter, which also share the dual class between them. And we have some really interesting cards, some powerful ones, but they're all throughout the whole spectrum. So let's head on into the review. The first Druid card that we'll talk about is a 1 mana spell called Partner Assignment. What the card does, it adds a 2 cost and a 3 cost beast to your hand. I looked through the 2 cost and 3 cost beast that we'll get and we have available. The 2 cost slot has a bunch of good ones. 3 cost one, not so much. So for constructed, this is not going to be consistent enough to drive some kind of game plan. There's the spell burst effect, which might be, I would say that's actually the reason why it goes to 2 stars. But I do think it needs a bunch of more support than just spell burst. So for constructed, it's only going to be 2 stars, and for arena, it's a little bit higher. Just having a consistent curve, which this one will help you create. If you get this on 1, you can kind of skimp out or drop turn 2 and turn 3 in order to get some more powerful later game cards. So for arena, it's a little bit better. For constructed, it's not strong enough. Next one for Druid, we have a 1-drop, a Gibberling, a 1 mana 1/1 with a spell burst effect saying that you summon a Gibberling. What I am unsure of, these Gibberlings, in the past, they've been there before, has this kind of spawn effect. So it might be that the next Gibberling will also have spell burst. So there's actually a chance that you can chain. If you can chain the spells, then you could fill the board with Gibberlings. It's not crazy powerful, but this could actually find a home in some kind of token playstyle. So I rated 3 stars for constructed. It needs a bit of help, but it could find a place in a deck somewhere. And for arena, a 1 mana 1/1 is fine, and with the upside of generating additional minions, that seems good. So there's not too much crazy stuff going on here. It's broad boards, a lot of minions, and very much focused around doing a big finisher with a broad board buff, something like that. Just seems like a solid card in both play modes. Next one is Twilight Runner. It's a 5 mana 5/4 with stealth. With the effect, when this attacks, draw 2 cards. And as you can see, I rate this really high. Seems like it's a good. The effect is so strong with this card. The fact that it has stealth almost guarantees that you will get the effect of the card. And it's something that is repetitive as well. Every time this one attacks, it draws you 2 cards. So it's kind of, you refill your hand. It might not be used in aggressive decks, but some kind of mid-range or a combo enabler, stuff like that. There are things where combo decks seems like they're pushed a bit in this expansion, and this could definitely, for Druid, support that quick draw through of the deck, which ensures your combo pieces for you to do your combo turn. So definitely, I think this will see play, maybe in combo decks, but also just as a mid-range replenisher card. There are also another spell it synergizes quite well with. I'll get into that when we review the spell. But generally, for constructed, solid card, really powerful. If we look towards arena, this is on even more than powerful there. This is such a strong Druid card for Arena. You get a good amount of time. You can dictate the trades whenever you drop this. It's not something where you push tempo initiative right away. You bank it for the next turn. But then you both dictate a trade. You can do a value trade if you like, or you can trade this into something, removing a big threat. But then you draw 2 cards on top of that. That's usually worth 3 mana if you look at Arcane Intellect, which you are happy including in the deck if you're playing in Arena. So essentially, looking at this card, if you say 3 mana is reserved for the card draw, can't really say it like that, but close to anyway. And it's only 2 mana for a 5/4 stealth minion. That's crazy stats. So definitely powerful in both play modes, and I do foresee this will see play both in constructed decks. Maybe not in all. For instance, the aggro decks might not find a good suit for this one. But the rest of the Druid decks that run some kind of idea behind drawing cards, increasing the value of the hand, they will have a good fit for Twilight Runner, definitely. So, good strong card in both play modes. Next one is a dual class card between Druid and Hunter. It's called Teacher's Pet, and it's 5 mana, 4/5 with Taunt, and Death Rattle summon a random 3-cost beast. I looked through the beast pool, and it's not really all that great. There's some low value ones, some really weak ones, some that trigger battle cries, and battle cry minions are typically a little bit less intimidating because they have the powerful battle cry effect. But still, it is a sticky minion which needs to be removed twice, and there are some synergy with this card. When I first looked at this, I wanted to give it 2 stars in constructed. So there is another card which could work well with this one specifically, and through that actually push this into a viable play state. For Arena, definitely it's a good card. It does something, it blocks off some damage, it's a sticky minion, and that's really great. Definitely a card that you don't mind picking and slotting into the 5-cost slot whenever you do an Arena draft. Next one is a dual class card between Druid and Hunter, and it's a rather expensive spell at 7 mana called Guardian Animals. What the spell does, it summons beasts that cost 5 or less from your deck, and then it gives them rush. So it is kind of a defensive card at first glance. If you look at the optimal situation, for 7 mana you get 2 5/5 beasts, and you give them an additional effect. So it is kind of 10 mana's worth of stuff that you're doing on 7 mana. And that's, I guess, quite good. I was moving a bit back and forth with this one myself, but as I mentioned, the last couple of minions that I've gone through, Teacher's Pet works both for Hunter and Druid, but also the Druid minion Twilight Runner. That one also works at 5 mana, so if you try and hit the 5 mana slot for beasts in your deck, then you're guaranteed to get. So there's some deck building constraints that you have to meet in this, but could be quite powerful. One combo I was thinking of when reviewing this card was Tundra Rhino. It's only a 2/5, but it might get rush, but the effect of that card is that all beasts that you have or have on the board, this also means the other one that you summon will have charge instead. So it might push you like, who knows, 7-8 points of damage. You might have stuff on the board or something that you can play together with Guardian Animals, which then also has charge. And if the Tundra Rhino sticks, then any additional animals that you push to the board afterwards will also have charge. So it could be kind of a finisher move, but it could also just be a stabilizing card for some kind of mid-range deck between Hunter and Druid. So it could work, but I was at the early point of reviewing the card only on 1 or 2 stars, but the effect is powerful if you can build a deck to support it. And with that in mind, that specific sentence, that's why it's not good in Arena, because you cannot dictate what you get in the draft, and therefore this is not going to be good. You might draw 2 Bloodfin Raptors for 7 mana. Well, that's only 4 mana if you actually play them. So getting that rush on those 2 is not great. You might not even get offered any beast in the draft, making this a dead card. It's a 1 mana card. It's too expensive. You're not guaranteed to get it to work. It's not a good arena card, but an interesting one for constructed. Then we have a very expensive spell for Druid called Survival of the Fittest. It's a 10 mana, and the effect is that it gives +4/+4 to all minions in your hand, in the deck, and in the battlefield. So there's no minion type constraints in this one. It can go in whatever deck. It can be beast, elementals, you name it, dragons, doesn't matter. So therefore this is a really powerful card. It's just on the turn, for it to matter in any way, shape or form, then you need to have a board. I rate it rather high despite of this, because there are, if for instance at the very beginning of the previous meta, Kael'thas decks were a thing and they were quite good, but then they kind of shifted into the spell druids that we've seen today, where they don't really need Kael'thas. But this effect is so powerful. It's a lingering effect. It affects any minion that you draw afterward. That this with Kael'thas could push another archetype. Even though you do not draw Kael'thas, then it's still a powerful effect if you are on the board. So even playing this for 10 mana could be okay if you are ahead, and then your subsequent plays is going to be quite great. So I think it is powerful enough that it'll find a spot in constructed. Specifically revolving around using Kael'thas, the legendary minion, to some kind of great effect with this card specifically. That was for constructed. For arena, it's going to be a little bit too slow. I only rated 2 stars there. Yes, if you're very much ahead, it's really cements that state, even though for 10 mana you're not really doing all that much. The effect is powerful enough that it warrants not putting it on 1 star, but it's very fringe and not good in most decks for arena. The next one for Druid is their Druid Legendary. With this card alone, there is a really significant chance that you will see a combo Druid deck. At least it's going to be tried out. I give it 5 stars, which indicate that it's going to be a powerful Druid deck. Of course, we don't know, but the effect is so powerful. One thing that I've come to learn reviewing the card is that the spell burst effect works really well with the card Germination. Germination is a card which copies the card that you target. It's a 4 mana spell, And because Forest Warden Omu, the one that you start copying, sees the start and the end of the spell, then that spell burst triggers. But the copy, the Omu copy, does not see the start of the spell and therefore still has the spell burst intact. This means it's going to cost 10 mana, but for 10 mana and those 2 cards, you have another 10 mana to invest. That could be Malagos, and then you drop a 0 or 1 mana spell, and after you've done that, then you get another 10 mana where you can invest that in damage spells somehow. Maybe another Germination on Malagos. Then each and every spell that you damage anything with will have plus 10 spell damage. And you still have, at that point in time, where you dropped your Malagos, you already dealt maybe 6 damage with a Moonfire to face. So your opponent is at 24. And at that point, you drop the Germination on your Malagos with a plus 10 damage, plus 10 spell damage, and you still have 6 mana left to do stuff. That is just there. There's a combo there somewhere. It might require too many cards, but it's going to be played. It seems really powerful, and there's, except for maybe a few disruption like the occultist, or the cult neophyte that is released in this expansion, or counterspell or some other kind of disruption. There's actually no way to break the combo. It's something that you can do in 1 turn, and well, you can just finish people off from 30 or even more with this combo specifically. So when a card like this allows for something really unique to be done and really break the constraints of the game, giving you 30 mana in a turn to do stuff with through a 2-card combo. No matter if it's going to be a combo completely, like a 1-turn kill, or if it's just going to be a massive flooding on the board, then that is powerful enough to warrant 5 stars for Constructed. Yeah. For Arena, it's going to be a little bit shorter. It's 6 mana 5/4. Doesn't really pass the vanilla stat. And building a deck in that way that I described, that's not possible. But you can have an okay powerful turn. It's just that you need to have a certain amount, like 5 or 6 spells in the draft at the point where you get offered Omu. And then, yes, it'll be probably quite good in that one deck specifically, that one draft specifically. But it needs a bunch of support, and that's why I only rated 2 stars for the Arena. Then we have a dual class legendary between Druid and Shaman. It is a 3 mana minion with Rush and Wind Fury. It has 1/4 in stats, and it has a spell burst effect. And that spell burst effect states gain attack and health equal to the spell's cost. So the card in itself, towards the later stages of the game, you probably want to drop this and play a spell in the same turn. But still, you have 7 mana in between. If you go to 10 mana, then that's quite an investment to do. But you'll have a 3 mana 7/7 Rush Wind Fury. That's quite powerful. But there's an additional effect here as well, where you can, for instance, drop this, do the first attack on the Wind Fury. It might be that it gets 3 points of damage, so it's going to be a 1/1. And then you drop the spell, because then the stats are reset from that 1/1 stat line to whatever the spell's cost would have been. And then you can do the second attack. So it allows for some value trades, some really neat intricacies to control the board. It could also just be something to control early aggression, that you just want to drop this on 3 and trade into some minions. That could also be an option for it. So it has some utility both early and late game, and that's why I actually think it's going to be a good inclusion in certain decks, that maybe even some more aggressive ones, but at least for the mid-range and control archetypes. Speaker Gidra seems like a really good card there. Mainly my thoughts have been revolving around the control aspects in control decks, but I might find other neat niches in the meta coming up. So 4 stars for constructed. I rated a little bit lower because of the constraint, and you need to have a spell for this to be really great. There's a huge upside there, and if you have the deck for it, it's going to be a legendary. You're not going to see it all that much. I know I say that a bunch of times, but if you have the deck for it when this is offered to you and it's not up against some crazy other legendaries, sure, go ahead. It's going to be good enough that it'll do stuff, and with the upside that it has, whatever, if it's a 3 or 4 or 5 cost spell, then that's also good, even though you don't get the 7/7 stat line with Russian Wind Fury and all this kind of stuff. It's still going to be quite a good card in Arena. Then we're heading over to Hunter now, and we have a 1-mana 1/1 common minion called Wolpertinger. Sounds like a German minion or something like that. Yeah. Wolpertinger has a battle cry saying that you summon a copy of this card. Of course, the upside there is getting this one buffed, and for instance, it's a +1/+1, and then you can and then when you drop this, you get a load of stats for 1 mana. And of course, you have the, can't remember the full name of it, but the scent card, when you tutor out a beast, which this one is, from your deck, and giving it +2/+2. In something like that, yes, it's definitely going to be good. But just as a 1-mana 1/1, this is still, we've seen cards like this whenever you have any kind of mid-range deck where you want to do some early control of the board, you want to be present on the board. You get 2 stats distributed among 2 bodies, and we have like Blazing Battle Mage on 1-mana 2/2, which is exactly the same stat line as this one, being played in a bunch of decks as it is right now. And with this one, it's going to be Beast also, instead of the Blazing Battle Mage, which has no minion type, which is relevant. It's a relevant beast type for Hunter. I think it's going to be strong, and any kind of deck that needs some early presence on the board, you will run this. We've seen it in the past. Cards like these are good, and it has no other effects, but still, it seems like it's solid enough to use. For Arena, just getting a 1-mana that is almost strong enough to contest any 2-drop, and you distribute this among different minions, so it has some kind of staying power against rogue and mage and stuff, which has an effect where the hero power can affect the board. They have a lingering effect. That's really good. So for Arena, definitely a 5-star card. It's going to be crazy for Hunter, which also has one of the most viable ways of also building an aggressive Arena draft, because you have your hero power that you also can go face with. Just having these early minions is so great for playing that specific type of Arena draft. So definitely a powerful one, and the right one for the class in Arena. A very strong Arena card. You don't mind picking this at all. It's really powerful. Next one is the Studies card for Hunter. And this one states that for 1 mana, you discover a Death Rattle minion. The next one, the next Death Rattle minion you play will cost 1 less. And already now there's some kind, for instance, for Phase Hunter, there's some synergy with Death Rattles, and I think there's significant amount of Death Rattles that is available in Hunter is going to be significant enough that Death Rattle Hunter is a deck that can be played viably. This one generates a random one, which means that you will... That's always a shortcoming. You get to discover it, which is better than generating a completely random one. But the pool of Death Rattles is so big at the moment that you getting the one that you need or want is probably not going to be the case here. But it has another use case on top of this. There's going to be a card just after, maybe not just after this one, but coming up, where Spell Burst actually has a relevant effect. And a cheap spell like this is great for triggering stuff like that, and the Death Rattle card is probably not going to be insignificant, because if it is a Death Rattle Hunter, which I indicate with this that it could be a viable deck type, then if you do find a spot for it in the deck, you don't need removal or charge or whatever, legendary or whatever, then the Carrion Studies could be a good inclusion in a Death Rattle Hunter deck, which has seen a bunch of success before. For Arena, discovering cards, generating cards, like, it's not even drawing a card for 1 mana, it's generating a card for 1 mana. With a potential really powerful Death Rattle effect. That's good. It is good. Because the discount you do get from on the cards that you generate, even if you have no other Death Rattles in the deck. So it's going to be good enough. It's going to be a card that you want to pick maybe over something that is less relevant. It might generate you that minion if there's a gap in the curve somehow. Then discounting another Death Rattle minion that's in your hand won't help you, but you might find a Death Rattle minion that is significant enough that you can do something right away. And just making sure that you don't lose grasp on the board. Well, if Carrion Studies supports that notion and that way of playing in the arena, then that's actually going to be a quite okay card. So 3 stars for Construct. It's probably going to see play in a Death Rattle Hunter. Same for Arena, just because it helps smooth out the curve and make sure they don't lose grasp on the board. For the next one, we have a really cheap early game removal spell for Hunter. It's a 1 mana spell that deals 2 damage to a minion. But if you have beasts on your side of the board, then you deal 1 additional damage per beast you control. So you can also look at the artwork here. You have your Wopatingers, just overwhelming everything. So just looking at this from a early game removal point of view. So if you drop your Wopatingers on turn 1, and then you target whatever minion your opponent drops on 2, this is actually 4 points of damage for a 1 mana spell already on turn 2 if you run that specific combo. So it seems like the reason why I rate this 3 stars is that it's probably only going to be strong enough in decks where you revolve around the beast synergy. It just seems with the expansion coming out, with the bunch of beast cards that I've seen pushed, both for the dual class cards between Druid and Hunter, but also just specifically for the class, I think that it seems like instead of the Dragon Hunter being the deck to go to in order to have a staple archetype to build around, seems like beasts are really could potentially do the trick, and that's why I rated 3 stars. It needs to be in a beast synergistic deck, but I think this is actually possible with the amount of support it's gotten for Hunter. And for Arena, just even with a 1 mana 2 damage spell, that's a good way of being able to target stuff that you wouldn't normally be able to do with the hero power, for instance. And you're bound to get beasts in Arena, specifically also in Hunter. So there's a good chance that you have an additional upside to this, and because of that, just having this 1 mana spell where you can really do some, you can finish off some. If your opponent have done a value trade, you have an 8/1 or 7/1 behind a taunt somewhere, ready to do another value trade. Well, you can target with the overwhelm, and make sure that you thin out the board, or you can push through taunts or whatever. So it seems like a very solid and viable card for the Arena. This next one for Hunter is a complete powerhouse. I'm at odds probably when some of the other reviews that I've seen haven't really thought this as being one of the really great cards, but I can't shake the indication that this effect is really powerful. And even with the notion that I see that we're going more towards a beast build, which this one also supports, is really a good. Then this is really a good card for Hunter. The card in itself is a 4 mana 3/5 with the spell burst effect of destroying a random enemy minion. There's a random effect in there, but these random effects has been a part of heart removal for Hunter for a very long period. And I think the condition, as opposed to the Rot Nest Drake, which is the way that it's done today, this condition is easily more easily done, and it comes down earlier. So with this in mind, having heart removal with a spell burst effect, even half the time you're on the coin. So there half the time that you're queuing in, you can do this on 4. So you drop this on 4, you drop the coin, and if you get nothing more out of the coin, then that's what it is. You use the coin to hard remove an enemy minion. I can't see any way that this is not going to be in Hunter decks. And if you get this epic card offered in the Arena, then you should definitely pick it. Again, half the time you do have a spell. Even though you get no spells, then half the time you do have one because you have the coin. So it's really powerful having this heart removal against the more valued with decks which has somewhat more value. That's really good. We'll see if it sees play. I'm not sure, but for me, I rate this 5 stars in both game modes. Then we have a 3 mana minion. It's a 3 mana 1/2, which is not a great stat line, but it has a death rattle effect, where when this one dies, you summon a 4/4 hapless handler. So it's probably he's been eaten by the python or something like that. But generally, I talked about Death Rattle Hunter as being something that you could expect to come out of this expansion. So I rate this the 4 stars because of that fact. There's a bunch of Death Rattle synergies at the moment. So this is kind of it's not an egg, but it's still this kind of egg mindset where you destroy one of your minions to get an effect, and on top of that, the Death Rattle effect out of the one minion that you destroy. That's kind of the egg synergy. Who's Darren Gorefield still being in the game, and bunch of more good, viable death rattle effects. I think this is going to be C-play, and even if you don't have an activating mechanism for the death rattle, as opposed to X, this 1/2 minion can trade into stuff, so it is active on its own, and can proc the death rattle by trading into stuff and leaving the 4/4 minion behind. So it's a delayed effect. It's a death rattle, and by it being a death rattle, it's a sticky minion. It's hard to remove. You get for 3 mana, you get a 1/2 minion. That's kind of a 1-drop, but you also get what is the equivalent of a 4-drop for 3 mana. Although it is with a delayed effect, it still seems viable and strong enough to see play in a deck, a hunter deck, which revolves around death rattles. For arena, having this lingering effect, which protects you against board clears, AoEs, and all this kind of stuff, that's just so powerful. Even though it's delayed, you put the tempo in the bank, so to speak, but you get the tempo back once you do trades. But just having a solid, well, the minion itself is not solid, but a solid turn 3 play that actually carries you into the later stages of the game, into turn 4 and so on. That's a powerful effect. X are not good in arena, but this one where you can activate it really viably, then that's good, because that's just, if every egg had 1 attack, they would be so much better in arena, and this is kind of the egg with 1 attack. So I expect this is going to be good, as opposed to other egg cards in arena. Then the last card for Hunter in this review, it's going to be the Hunter Legendary. It's a 3 mana 3/4 with the effect that your spells are poisonous. To clarify, if you drop an Unleash the Hounds, where you drop a bunch of 1/1 hounds, they are not going to be poisonous. It is spells that damage stuff, like Overwhelm that we just went through. Then instead of dealing 2 damage, it's a poisonous spell which just removes whatever minion. First off, when I saw this, it was kind of like, what? That's crazy! Printing a card like this? What? And I still think it's powerful. Having this in the very early stages of the game, and you can also play a bunch of other stuff with this, it is a powerful effect. But I toned it down to 4 stars due to the fact that I looked through the damage spells for Hunter, and there, had this been in Mage, for instance, it would be a 5-star card. But there are less options available for Hunter. I still think it's going to be strong enough to see play. Yeah, and for arena, even just base stat line like a 3 mana 3/4, that's perfect. What you want out of a 3-drop. And the lingering effect that your opponent has to be cautious that each and every spell that you might throw at your opponent's board could be poisonous. That's so powerful. So the upside is definitely there. It's just, I don't rate it 5 stars for arena as well, because you're not guaranteed to get the spells. And the spells that you do get, they might be better with minion generation instead of, you might be offered a damage spell, but the minion generation one is better. Then you don't want to play around, even though you already might have drafted Professor Slate. You don't want to play around this one-off in your deck. But when things do align and the stars are right, and you do have the damage spell, you do have Professor Slate, then this is such a crazy powerful effect that it warrants a 4-star rating in both game modes. Alright, so that's it, guys. This concludes part 7 of the card reviews for Scholomance Academy. And also the classes of Druid and Hunter. So we reviewed all those cards. and we will head on into other card reviews going forward. And thanks for watching, guys.